Well, I'm talking to Noah Abrahams from London. He used to work in BBC, and well, recently he quit BBC, and he's gonna tell us himself why. So, thank you so much for being here, Noah, and for talking to us, to the
No,
like.
buenas tardes. Thank you for having me on.
Buenas tardes. ¿Hablas español?
Sí, un poquito
Ah,
español.
poquito. Very good. Muy bien, muy bien. Okay, Nohan. Well, tell please to our audience why you quitted BBC.
Well, I stand by my morals. I'm a man of my morals, and however much I adored my job at the BBC as a football commentator, someone who was privileged enough to go and watch games, even during COVID, behind closed doors, my lifestyle, my career was to go and get paid to watch football. So even with that lifestyle, I had to give it up because I will no longer stand behind the BBC's terminology surrounding Israel. I think they are wrong. I think they are obsolete in their view not to change their terminology. And to clarify, the BBC call Hamas militants. They are not. They are terrorists. And when the BBC supported and defended their stance, it was time for me to go.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm a journalist. I totally agree, and I commit with my words. This is absolutely terrorist action. Well, there is no point to be a militant. And why do you think that there is this procedure in BBC? Is it political? Is it economical, financial, or what is the reason? They justified saying that they don't take part, although not saying terrorist is not even not taking part because it's absolutely just like just a word, descriptive words, in my opinion, right? You might agree with me.
Well,
When I
to
say
not use
terrorist, I'm not taking part. I'm just saying what it is because it produces terror.
quite, to not use the word terrorism in itself violates impartiality. It blurs impartiality. The BBC's policy and their stance is that they want to stay impartial, which they haven't because
Oh,
there
but
was an attack.
impartial is okay. It's part of being a journal. The good journalism is impartial, but what I think it's not. I don't see the relation of using a word and being impartial. Being impartial is like I stand for this or for that. Like in football, you can
There's a
be
difference.
you can
There's
support
a difference
a team
between
impartial or impartial as a journalist as well. But if the team wins, it wins, although it's not your team. It's not being partial or impartial. You know what I mean?
and there is a difference between impartiality and neutrality, and the BBC
Oh,
aren't they are not impartial because yesterday there was a terror attack in Brussels, and the BBC described it as a terror attack. So why isn't the same being said for what's happening in Israel? The
uh-huh.
BBC have previously used the words terrorists. It's a myth that they haven't. And I think this
Oh,
is
there is
either
something behind. There is something behind the scenes that we don't see.
I think this is either unconscious or conscious anti-Semitism
Ah,
uh,
okay.
and anti-Zionism.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Do you think that, or you have some clues or what takes you to think like this?
Oh, I think the evidence points to that because there is no justification for the BBC not to call Hamas, who the
And
British government.
what is the BBC definition of terrorism? Well, I'm referring back because they called it in Belgium yesterday, as you said. What is the definition of? Let's see why it doesn't fit here.
That's a brilliant question. I would really like to, I would like to invite the Director General of the BBC, Tim Davie, to answer that question. What is the definition of terrorism? If you describe the attack in Brussels as a terrorist attack, and all attacks are tragic, all atrocities are tragic. No attack or atrocity or genocide, in the case of what's happening in Israel now, is the same. However, you cannot call one attack an act of terrorism without referring to Hamas as a terrorist organization, which they are. The British government have said they are. The defense secretary in this country, Joe Biden, the royal family, the King of England, the only broadcaster to not change their stance is the BBC. Why? I don't know.
Yeah, I always say that when you want to understand something, just follow the money, and we'll see. Do you think there is some financial interest behind that, or some political pressure somehow anti
Well,
or
the political pressure is for the BBC to use the word terrorist. So the government wants the BBC to start using the correct terminology, as do the Jewish community in London and the chief rabbi, and pretty much everyone else who has any common sense. I think that the Director General of the BBC is being obtuse. I think, like I said, I think they are obsolete. I think maybe he thinks it's a visceral issue. It's not. This is as serious as it gets because words
yeah.
fuel hate. That is how wars start, through words, through terminology. And to get that terminology wrong is catastrophic.
Yeah. And by the way, you produced a big confusion in the good way of the word, because everybody is talking about this. Even BBC, they apologized many times, which is a little bit strange as well, because if you don't say something wrong, you don't have any reasons to apologize about it, and explain. But yeah, what do you see? How do you see this conflict? Because I think that we have to separate what is the Palestine issue and Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization. There is nothing to do with the Palestinians. And well, how do you see this conflict? You are Jewish, right?
Yes, I'm Jewish.
Is there a solution? Is there how do you see? Because it seems to be even time.
It's not for me to say what the solution is here. I am a journalist and I am someone with a voice and a platform. However, I am no expert in Israeli politics or Middle Eastern politics, or not yet anyway. I'm only 22 years old, and I don't think I can give you an eloquent or informed enough answer.
Not as a journalist, as a Jewish. How do you feel? Do you feel, because maybe you talk to your community and well?
As a Jewish person, I think I speak for the whole community when all we want is some humanity in this world. All we want is some peace and quiet, and for our side to live without destruction, for their side to live in the same way. Although this isn't about sides, this is about people. I know Joe Biden referred to them as teams today. This isn't about sides or teams. This is about people and how people live their lives, how human beings are treated. And the Israelis have been infiltrated, attacked, murdered, raped, beheaded. And if a terrorist organization isn't behind that, then who is? Now, they are a terrorist organization.
Absolutely.
They are a terrorist organization. But the BBC won't say it. And I cannot understand and I cannot condone them.
Yeah, my question was because I realized that normally over the countries, as a journalist, I realized that some political parties and organizations, associations, left wing, they're like standing for Hamas, which is absurd. Because as I say, you can stand for Palestine, and there is nothing to do with a terrorist attack of Hamas, which is,
Well, and you're right, and this is where using the wrong terminology it fails to distinguish between people going out to buy their milk in the morning, standing alongside the conflict, and people in the conflict. Now, there will be innocent people in Gaza, like there are thousands of innocent people in Israel. And when the BBC don't refer to Hamas as terrorists, we risk blurring the lines even more. We risk merging normal people going out to buy their carton of milk in the morning with those trying to destroy the world that we live in. And that is why terminology is so important, because without it, we don't distinguish.
Yeah. And Noah, talking about you now a little bit, what comes next? Are you, do you? Well, first of all, congratulations for your. It's brave act. Although you could keep on BBC as well and keep in the voice, but of course it's like, as you say, it's like your moral. I think it's more ethical than moral. Even it's even deeper, right? Because.
Correct.
How do you feel now? Because probably going to face these kind of things in many in other media as well, not only in BBC. I think sometimes we have this crash of values. It happens to me all the time as well. It's so hard.
Yes, and I am not someone who is. I don't see myself as above anyone else. That wasn't what this was about. And of course, I've had disagreements in places of work. I've never left my workplace before because of them. This is something very extreme and very different. This is an issue. This is an issue that is like any other. You're quite right.
We're talking about BBC. It's
and you're quite. This is the biggest news organisation in the world, and you're quite right. And of course, I've had disagreements in the past with the BBC. I've never left. I've only left this time. I've only refused to work for the BBC this time because of the damage I think they're doing to the Jewish people. And as for me next, hopefully I'll be working for. Hopefully I'll be working for other broadcasters and.
Is there any possibility coming back to BBC if they revise this, for instance?
Only if the BBC were under different leadership.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for sharing your view, your story, and we support you here unconditionally, because it's totally absurd to call this. As a journalist, I have never seen that in my life. Calling these like a militantism, militants. It reminds me something, syndicalism, or social rights, whatever. But totally when it's
Nada, gracias, and thank you.
Thank you, muchas gracias, muchísimas gracias. I spoke to no one directly from London.
Galáctica Digital, radio y televisión Iberoamérica. Sensaciones en tu ser.